Number 3. The Loch Lomond Monster. Located in central Scotland, Loch Lomond has the largest surface area of any of the Scottish lochs and is second only in volume to Loch Ness. While reports of a mysterious creature in the loch have been reported for centuries, sightings of the creature are very rare compared to the more famous Scottish loch monsters, resulting in little press or scientific interest. The Loch Lomond Monster is unique among Scottish loch monsters due to its unusual appearance. Most loch monsters are reported as being similar in appearance to either a prehistoric plesiosaur or a giant serpent or eel. While some reports of the Loch Lomond Monster match this description, most reports of the creature describe it as resembling a giant crocodile, an animal not native to Scotland. In 1997, there was a burst of sightings of the creature. The Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals received a number of calls reporting a large crocodile or alligator eating ducks in the loch. Later that year, a group of friends who were shooting a music video on the banks of the loch claimed to have captured the creature on film. According to freelance journalist Nick Taylor, who shot the video, the creature appeared as they were packing up their gear to leave when they spotted the creature swimming slowly not far from shore. The video he shot of the creature eventually reached Dr. Andrew Kitchener of the Royal Museum of Scotland. After viewing the tape, Dr. Kitchener stated that the creature did indeed appear to be a crocodile, but quickly added that it would be impossible for a crocodile to survive for long in the cold waters of Loch Lomond. Number 2. Morag. Loch Morar, while not as large in surface area as Loch Ness, is the deepest body of water in the United Kingdom, with a maximum depth of just over 1,000 feet. It is also reported to be home to a creature named Morag, with reports dating from at least the 1880s, although, as it appears that the creature and the folklore surrounding it were already well established at that time, it is likely that the legend is much older. In reports from the 1880s through to the early 20th century, Morag is sometimes described as a black heap or ball slowing and deliberately rising in the water and moving along like a waterlogged boat. This is a reasonable description of the commonly reported lake monster, but other reports from the time describe Morag as a mermaid. In these reports, she is described as a creature with the lower body of a fish and the upper body of a beautiful, large-breasted blonde woman who appears only when one of the hereditary people of the loch dies. At some point in the early 20th century, reports of the mermaid Morag ceased, and only reports of the monster Morag remain. Folklorist R. MacDonald Robertson collected the following sighting from an Alexander MacDonald. The sighting was undated, but likely occurred sometime in the earlier part of the 20th century. Some years ago, we were proceeding one morning down the loch in the estate motor launch from Morag Pier with some school children and other persons on board. As we were passing Bracana Point, on the north side, some of the children excitedly shouted out, "Oh look, what is that big thing on the bank over there?" The beast would be about the size of a full-grown Indian elephant, and it plunged off the rocks into the water with a terrific splash. In a sighting from 1948, 9 people on a boat reported seeing a serpent-like creature 20 feet long. The sighting took place in the exact same location as a sighting 61 years earlier in 1887. The most famous sighting of Morag took place on August 16, 1969. 2 local men, William Simpson and Duncan MacDonald, were traveling in an 18-foot cabin cruiser across the loch headed for the village of Morar. It was early evening, and the loch was calm and quiet. As they were traversing the western end of the loch, MacDonald heard a loud splash behind them, and he looked around to see a large creature approaching their boat. They estimated it to be about 25 to 30 feet long, with rough, dirty brown skin and a snake-like head, and 3 humps, which MacDonald later described as undulations, each rising about 18 inches above the water. The creature was moving rapidly towards them, at a speed they estimated to be between 20 and 30 miles per hour, and it struck their boat, rocking it hard enough to knock over a kettle of water, at which point it stopped moving and remained stationary next to their boat. McDonald stated that he believed the impact to their boat was accidental and not malicious, but he was still terrified of the creature, fearing that it would swim under the boat and capsize it due to its sheer size. Seizing an oar, he tried to push it away from the boat, but was unable to make the massive creature budge, so he tried beating it with the oar, which failed as the oar broke. In desperation, Simpson took out his rifle and fired a shot at the creature, at which point it slowly sank out of sight. Neither man observed any blood in the water, although Simpson was positive that his shot had landed. Morag continues to be sporadically reported to this day, although no encounters as dramatic as the McDonald-Simpson encounter have been reported. In 2013, a retired oil industry engineer and his wife were staying at a bed and breakfast owned by Michael McNeil and his wife Catherine. One day the man shouted to Michael, asking him if there was a rock in the middle of the loch. Laughing, he informed the man that the loch was 1,000 feet deep and that there were no rocks near the surface. When he went to see what the man was talking about, he said, "Sure enough, there was a largish black object, maybe two, very close together, in the middle of the 2-mile-wide loch. I have seen otters in the loch, but this was no otter, much bigger and almost motionless." Number 1. The Loch Duich Monster. Loch Duich is a sea loch, that is, a loch which connects with the ocean, located in the western Scottish Highlands. Monster sightings are extremely rare in this loch. It is nowhere near the tradition of monster folklore as Loch Ness, Loch Morag, or even Loch Lomond. However, there is a rumored video showing a creature in this loch, which has been described by those who have claimed to have seen it as the most sensational wildlife footage ever recorded, and as insurmountable proof of a Nessie-like monster. The whereabouts of this video are currently unknown. To piece together what we know about this video, we first have to go back to 1965 and the work of Nessie researcher Ted Holliday. In the mid-1960s, Holliday was conducting research for his 1968 book on the Loch Ness Monster titled The Great Orme of Loch Ness. While he was researching, a source told him he should get in touch with a man named Alistair Dallas, who supposedly had information on 2 extraordinary films showing loch creatures. Holliday managed to track Dallas down, who at first refused to speak with him, but eventually relented and told him his story. Dallas told Holliday that the films had been shot in the 1930s by a Dr. McRae, who had retired to the shores of Loch Duich and was now deceased. The first film was shot at Loch Ness, and the second at Loch Duich. In his 1968 book, Holliday relays Dallas's description of the first film thusly. The film runs for several minutes. 3 humps, together with the neck and head, are clearly visible. The neck is held low over the water and seems to be writhing to and fro. During the sequence, a bird flies down and lands on a stone in the foreground, which helps to give scale to the picture. The creature's head appears to be bluntly conical in profile, rather like half a rugby ball, to quote Mr. Dallas. On the crest of the head are 2 horn-like sense organs. Starting between these and running down the neck is a bristly mane. Mr. Dallas said that this mane reminded him of baleen. It is stiff, yet flexible, and the texture seemed to him to be fibrous rather than hairy. Slit-like eyes can be made out on the head, but they are not very distinct. Occasionally the animal rolls in the water, and one of the forward flippers makes an appearance. It is thick and fleshy in section, and appears to be capable of independent movement. The skin looks tough and leathery. Another interesting feature is the fact that the head seems to be in a state of continuous flux or movement, apparently due to the play of muscles under the skin. He then provides this description of the second film, shot in Loch Do. The monster is lying against the shore and is writhing its neck over a bed of seaweed. It differs from the Loch Ness specimen in having a longer neck and a mane which looks tufted. A man appears in the picture during this sequence, probably in the background. Naturally, Holliday was eager to see these films for himself. However, Dallas told him that Dr. McCrae had locked the films in a safety deposit box and put them under a legal trust until a time when the matter of the monster was taken more seriously. One of the trustees was Dallas himself, another was a deceased colonel, and the other was an individual whom Dallas refused to name. Further letters from Holliday to Dallas went unanswered, so he ultimately decided to drop the matter. From here, the story of these elusive films becomes more complicated. In 1976, Roy Mackal published his book, The Monsters of Loch Ness. In relation to the McCrae film, he mentions the work of researcher Alan Wilkins, who is himself credited with taking a poor quality video of the Loch Ness Monster in 1975. According to Wilkins, Dallas refused to meet with him, but eventually agreed to speak with him through an intermediary. Through these conversations, Dallas claimed that Holliday had completely twisted his story. There was only one film, the one Holliday describes as the second film, showing the creature in Loch Do, and it was not as good quality as Holliday had claimed. He said that Holliday's description of the first film, showing the creature in Loch Ness, was actually based on Dallas's recollection of his own Nessie sighting in September of 1936. Lastly, there was no safety deposit box and no trust. He simply didn't know where the film was. In the late 1990s, the matter of the McCrae film was taken up again by researchers Mike Dash and Paul Harrison. They first set out to verify if Dr. McCrae had even existed. Obtaining a medical register from the early 20th century, they were able to verify that a doctor named Farquhar McCrae had indeed retired to the shores of Loch Do in 1925, and he had died at the age of 92 in 1948. While Dr. McCrae never had children, they were able to locate some of his surviving extended family. In 1998, Dr. McCrae's great-grandniece, Fiona McCrae, claimed in a letter to Mike Dash that she had heard rumors within her family of photographs, not video, taken of a loch monster by Dr. McCrae. She added that she had heard the rumors from an uncle who was, at that time, 30 years deceased. Another living relative, Jack McCrae, claimed that he had heard that Dr. McCrae made a film of the Loch Ness Monster and that it was stored in a bank upon his death, a rumor which seems to reignite the Holliday claims of a bank trust protecting the film, despite those rumors supposedly being debunked by Alistair Dallas in the 1970s. All of this leaves us with more questions than answers. Is there two films, or only one film, showing the creature in Loch Do? If there was indeed a trust, since all three members of the supposed trust are almost certainly deceased, there would have been a solicitor, so what was their duty should all of the trustees die? If some kind of fund was created to cover rental fees on the safety deposit box, does this film still lie in a vault somewhere? Was it perhaps turned over to a solicitor who didn't know what he had, and it now lies forgotten in a basement or attic? Or does it even exist at all? One thing that is certain is that debate about the existence of the McCrae films is now as hotly a debated topic as is the existence of the creatures themselves. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, check out my other videos, and if you haven't already, subscribe.